All right, here we are again with another episode of Dance Gems. Today we having a guest, and her name is Silvia Schiffer, and we're talking about prevention and diagnosis of injuries in dance, of course, right? But I will never do that without having my good friend and colleague. Ton, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. And
Hey, good to.
nice to hear you and to see you. And we have a fantastic guest today.
Yeah, it's
And
Sylvia. What do you think? Let's talk about things like prevention. And she's an expert in how to diagnose certain injuries in general, but then we would like to specifically focus that on dance. So I thought it was an excellent topic for us to discuss and for, of course, our viewers and our listeners. What do you think, Tom?
yes, that's a really nice subject because mostly they have injuries on their ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders, the back. Oh, the dancers have everywhere problems in the elbows, in the neck.
Yes,
By
well, it only shows how tough dancing is on the body. It's definitely something you and I always talk about to do that in the most healthy way. But still, it's very demanding on the body, the hours that dancers often make on the floor. And so, how can we prevent injuries is what we talk about today. But also, if you happen to have an injury, what then to do about it. But first, an exact diagnosis of what's the problem is also very important. Someone who knows everything about it is hopefully waiting for us to talk to her is Sylvia. So let us have her in the show.
Hello.
Yes, hello Sylvia. It's good to have you, to see you here, and then to have you also, of course, in the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Had
Good,
a lot
good.
of work this week, also with a lot of dancers.
Okay. Can you first tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you are such a good person to interview you on this topic?
Yes, I'm a medical doctor and I make radiology and diagnosis until 1987. So it's a very long time. And yeah, now I'm working in a private practice. And yeah, I do all the necessary diagnostic methods. Yeah, I have every day to do with the injuries of also of dancing. Others also. Yes.
Yeah, not only of dancers, of course, but today we talk
Mm,
specifically about
yes.
dancing. Yeah, fantastic. And do you dance yourself too, Sylvia?
Yes. I started dancing when I was 4 years old. And I did it together with my brother until 14 years old and then stopped, but always was dancing along. And then I started nearly 6 years ago again. Yes, and now I'm also dancing standard and Latin dancing.
s-
Beautiful.
so, Sylvia, you had also injuries as a dancer now, recently,
Yes,
or in that 6 years by yourself?
yes, yeah, yes, I had a lot of. I remember when I was training Samba, I was falling down and broken my back. And then I also I became adjudicator. And during this education, I had a hip problem at the left side and I could not dance for 3 months. So, yeah.
So
Hmm.
you can not only speak from being a doctor, but you can speak from the point of being a dancer, and you can,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I must say, speak also from the point that you had some injuries because of dancing yourself. But that itself, I would say, Sylvia, gives you a really rich background and knowledge to talk very informed and with experience to other dancers. So let's start with asking what do you say is the most common injury that you see in dancers?
Hmm. I think the ankle is a very big problem, and the knee and the hip. Yes, I think this is the most common injury that can happen.
Areas, yeah, the most areas. Ankle, knees,
Yes,
and hip. Okay. And what specific injuries do you see in those three areas?
there's on the one side the accidents,
Mm-hmm.
If you slip on the floor and you crack your bands, and also not so common, but also the broken bone. And
So the ligaments, that's something that happens a lot, and that's mostly in the ankle and the knees. What about the hip? I hear a lot of complaints about inflammation, things like that.
if you become older, and I'm dancing in the master class, you try to dance as good as a young couple, but it's not so easy because the bone and the chondral surface of the ankles are not so strong. If you are a young person, you will have a lot of problems if you train very hard.
I had also a lot of problems in my ankles and in my Achilles and
Mhm.
tendinitis, or I don't know how you call
Yeah.
that, and
Tendonitis, yeah.
stress fractures. My daughter, she's a ballet dancer, and she has this also several times in the hip and the hip flexor. All problems in my hips and in my knee, also my left knee. So yes, that's actually the areas where I had also a lot of problems. Mainly now I have problems with my shoulder. And
Mm.
so it was broken and now it's still injured. But of course I train, but the difference is in people how they train. Some people continue with training with the shoulder, still they have
Mm.
pain. I can imagine that's not okay. Maybe you can give some advice for that. But you have also people who complete not train and do the opposite. I think that's not necessary because you can also move other body parts. Maybe you could answer this too. What would be a balanced solution to work with that body if you have injuries like this on a particular body part? How you can go on with it?
Mm. I think a big problem is that all our tendons will shorten more and more if you don't train it.
Oops. All
And
right. And
the two
well,
questions was some people still practice when they have an injury, and I could imagine that this is not okay because you can make it more worse. Or you are trained not at all, the other opposite. And this is also not well because your muscles and your tendons go back in 1 week. I read somewhere 7% you will loss of your muscle power if you not train. So we are looking that Silvia comes in and we can continue for now, Sean, with the injuries, but we need our expert. Yeah, there
I,
she
now,
is.
I now I see you again. Okay, sorry,
Yes, yes.
that was a
No,
that
no
question.
problem,
happens.
Sylvia. Yeah, it
That's
happens.
that's the
Yeah,
beauty of a live interview.
yes.
But yeah, so Ton had a question, so let me just repeat it very quickly. So if you have an injury, doesn't matter where, some people don't practice at all anymore, which is probably not really good. Some people practice too much, which is not really good either.
Yeah, and how handle you this with the injury, Sylvia? In a point of how you see that.
Mm. Yes, okay. If you have a problem with the tendons or with the connection between tendons and bone, and you work on it on and on, there is the problem that the tendon will be, that's a possibility that there is a crack of the tendon. And you have to try to do something against the inflammation of the tendon. You have to wait until the time when it's over, and then you have to train as soon as possible on the low level and stretch the tendons. The stretching is very important because every tendon will be shorter and shorter in time. If you wait and wait, that's not good. But if you start too early and with too much power, you will have a problem again. You have to find a middle level with training, but you don't
What
have to wait too long. especially in the shoulder. The shoulder will be frozen. We have the word frozen shoulder. After 3 weeks, you don't move your shoulder, you will have a frozen shoulder. And then the capsule of the shoulder, if you start to stretch it again, you will set very small injuries in the capsule, and then you will have the same problem. Wie sagt
It's like a
man?
circle. You run
Yeah,
around.
it's a circle. You will set an injury, you will move, you will stretch, and again, and then so you don't have to wait too long, especially with the shoulder.
Yes, with the shoulder, I practice my shoulder. I have a here. And when I practice my shoulder, I use this elastic, what I have here, and I train it, my muscles then, and to keep the muscle strong. But if it's broken on a particular way, you can move it in one way, but not in the other way. This is how I handle it. But the other body parts, you could then still train then.
Yeah.
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 That is, you can still run when you have a shoulder injury. Although you always have to, you always have to be careful with these things. Sylvia, you were talking about tennis tend to get shorter as you grow older, but also if you don't practice it almost on a
Yeah.
daily basis, right? So, and if you then start a little bit later in life, we immediately want to be as young people, which causes a lot of injuries because of that. Now, do you think that our body is really well equipped to feel that ourselves when we push to our limits or even over our limits? Or is it wise to have always some guidance with that?
I think if you continue all your life to move and to train, you have a better chance to hold your body and all the ankles, yeah, movable, stretchable. If you don't do anything, if you sit on your chair or on your sofa, you can wait a few weeks and or a few months that you cannot do anything. So you have to be in motion.
Yes. But the question
Also,
is,
also if you
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
the question is if you have pain or if there's any problem with tendinitis or I don't know arthritis, you have to find a way to move against the pain. You don't have to stop moving. You should not.
No, but it depends a little bit on character, right? Some people have a
Yes.
pretty high pain tolerance and go push through it too far. Some people have a very low pain tolerance and don't push
Yes,
themselves enough. So my
that's
question
true.
is, how do we? I'm an athlete since I was 6, and in all these years that I practice, I had very few injuries. The older you start with either dance or another sport, the more difficult it is, but it also is more difficult to feel what your body can take. There are definitely dance trainers who push their dancers too far. There are also dancers who don't push it too far, so they don't get anywhere either. So, how to find that balance is the question, but it could also be a question
Yes.
of Tom. What is a good balance between these things, right? I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so I tend to push it a little bit too far if I have something. Um, Tom, what is your opinion about that?
Of course, listen always to your body. I tell to my students, listen always to your body. A doctor or another person cannot feel what you feel. So that's the most important. If you go over a border, that's also not okay. So don't go through the pain, but unrest, how you say that, the pain as a friend and go with it, go with the flow, but don't work against it. Be mine advice, and you can prevent also injuries. Prevention and management of your body. It's quite important to do a warm up, cooling down, keep your stamina there, your condition, your strength of your muscles, your technique, and the rest, the recovery. It's also very important. Footwear, what you wear on your feet, that's quite important. How you prepare your shoes, or if you not have shoes, is it too sticky or too slippery? It's all things where you have to think about. before, not when it happened, it's already too late. So you could, because your body is a whole big instrument, and you have to be careful with that instrument, how you handle that and how you work with that instrument. So you have actually to create more awareness for that body. We had a podcast about that one, body and mind. And it's so important, all these crossovers, and you have also a cross training to prevent and management that big body. That's what I feel. They go immediately on the floor and start to dance.
Okay.
Instead, first to warm up that mind and that body. What do you think what I said just about that, Sylvia? Is there something truth on it?
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true. If you go to the floor and start immediately and don't connect before with your partner, don't be.
Let's pick it up when Ton stopped talking, right? That's okay.
Um,
But when Ton stopped talking, he asked me, "What do you think about that, Sylvia? Do you think there's any truth in what I said?"
Yes,
Remember
and
that?
I think it's a big problem if you don't warm up and connect with your partners before you start dancing and don't prepare for the dancing. You will not be successful. You will not feel good because you are not warmed up and connected. And the danger to get an injury in this situation is much higher. And the problem is that if you go to the floor in this situation, you will have the wrong posture. And a wrong posture makes an incorrect loading to your body, and then nothing will work. You will not feel good, and this is the situation when when the trainer then says, "Go and go. What are you doing?" You will try to do much more, and then the risk to get an injury is very high.
is there a different mindset how to warm up your body, how to do that, how to go into that?
Yes. It's very important, but in our hall and the situation there, it's not so easy to prepare first. There's no room to do this. So it's not so easy. But for me personally, it's much more important to find the feeling and the connection to my partner. And yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on the personality, but yeah, that's not so easy. I think it's very important. Because
You
then you
you
and excuse me.
Mhm.
Hmm?
You dance with two people, so I assume you do ballroom dancing and
Yeah.
the Latin and the standard dancing. They
Mhm.
have particular dance. You dance always with a partner, with two people, and so you want to, in your particular case, you want to warm up with your partner together. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
But I can imagine if you dance as a ballet dancer alone or as a hip hop dancer solo, that you have a different approach to warm up.
Yes.
Each dance form has his particular warm up, and
Mhm.
each dance form, each person in that dance form has a particular way to warm up their mind and also their body. It's not only the body, but also your mind you have to warm up to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
focused. Yeah.
I think
yeah.
the general thing to take from this is find a good warm up practice, right? But also there is, I remember last year when I was with you, Sylvia, we had a lot of talks about this, that some people overstretch when they warm up, which is a very common thing, Tom, because a muscle, when you lengthen the muscle, you give them basically a signal that they go to rest, right? But you see a lot of people overstretching before they, specifically dancers, before they warm up, which causes a lot of inflammation and injuries actually. So it's different than to give your body a signal you need to be ready to do something intensively and when you cool down. And that requires also some education. People just do what
Yes.
they see, and stretching, way too much stretching before they dance. I see that way too often.
Mm-mm.
We talked a lot about that, Sylvia.
Mm. Yes, if you warm up, you have first to warm up in the really
Literally, yeah.
meaning of this word. You have to warm up your muscles and your body and not stretch. Stretching is more important after training.
Cool down. Yep. Yeah.
Cool down, because if you stretch a tendon or a muscle, if it is cold, you will hurt the muscle. You have a risk to get an injury and to overstretch the connection between tendon and bone. And yes, you are right. This is very important, this difference.
You and I talked mostly about it because dancers have to be very flexible, right?
Yeah.
So the overstretching is when the tendons actually come loose from the bones or the muscles, is a very common injury, as you told us. And you don't notice that in the beginning. You do feel more flexible, but you don't know actually that you start to hurt yourself and
Yeah.
causes very severe injuries. We saw it with one of the students that was with us in the camp. So that's a good thing. The difference between warming up and cooling down.
Yes.
I think that students don't cannot always figure that out themselves. We need to teach them and tell them these things very specifically, specific dancers. And then the other thing that you said, Ton, was interesting is if you feel an injury, when is it time to go to you, Sylvia, and have a proper diagnosis? Hey, I feel pain. Do you go too quick to a doctor or do you go too late to a doctor? But to have a good diagnosis, you can never be too late. You can always be too late. You can never be too early. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
If you're an athlete, be smart, right? Let yourself check if you feel a pain that is sharp. And so, how do
You
you
know,
think? What? Yeah.
yeah, if you feel a pain in, I say it, in the shoulder or in the knee, and every time if you do your practice, if you dance, it will come back. If you are working, then you have to have a diagnosis and a hopeful diagnosis.
Yes.
If you push on this pain every time on and on, next time, you have the risk that a tendon will crack, and
Hmm.
then you have more problems.
So,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
The
in the
beauty of
ballet, how I see that with my daughter, I see this often. She has an injury and go on because she has her next contract or her next job and continue. Many ballet dancers have that, and there is, how you say, support of the companies, but sometimes I feel also they let these dancers swimming alone in this big ocean without support. So how you would prevent that one, or that you could be clever enough to take action? What would be your advice, Sylvia?
yes, I think it depends on the trainers. If the trainers push the dancers as long as they can without looking to the pain or the problems, or don't push the way to a diagnosis.
Be not
This is,
fine to give context before that a dancer, I feel, is also a dancer don't come to me, they don't do the exercise, and then I ask what has happened to you, then they give context. Would it be not a better way to go before and to ask or to say to the trainer or to the company leader, this is my issue, this I have, and yes, be prepared that I have these issues, but I will of course do the lesson, and then I can give advice. I give my advice always: listen to your body. So how you would tackle this one to be prepared for a dancer with injuries? Because
yeah,
I don't know how to handle it. This is the way how I would do it.
you have to know what Sean also said before, that it depends on the different things. At first, on the pain level you have. If there's somebody who has a low pain level, he will stop dancing and come to you and say, "Oh, I can't dance anymore." And then you could say it could be better if you say, "Okay, jetzt don't worry, dance. It's
Come on.
okay.
Yeah.
Come on." And if there is somebody like, I think Sean and also me, who has a high pain level, we need somebody who says, "Stop. Now we will look what the reason of your pain is. But yeah, it depends on the person, on the personality of the dancer. I think that I can only say it for Germany. The chances and possibilities to get a time to have an MRI or
Yeah,
X-ray.
this is also what I want to ask to you because I
Mhm,
have one friend. She didn't go her whole life to an MRI scan. She has
mhm.
problems in the knees. But could you
Yes,
explain us all the different between X-ray, echo, ultrasound, a
ultrasound.
CT scan, MRI, and could you explain something about because they have particular functions about it, and
Mhm,
which one you have to take? That's also
mhm,
not easy set. So
mhm.
how you would
Okay.
handle that
And
then?
in history of radiology started with Röntgen, who found the possibility to see the bones and the lung, but you don't see the tendons, you don't see the muscles, you can only see the bones. So you can make the diagnosis fracture or arthrosis or something like this, but not more. In dancers, you most have the problems with the tendons and the muscles. You can only see it in ultrasound or in MRI. Ultrasound
Mm.
is you send sound waves to the body and they will be reflected, and then the computer show you a picture of this with gray levels and black or white or gray or dark gray or light gray, and then you can say, okay, there's a fluid or there is something like this. But the best method to see the problems of dancers in ankles and spine, all this, is MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, the translation. And it works like this. You put the body into a magnetic field, and then all the atoms in the body will be find the right with the electrons to the plus and minus pole. And then if the magnet field stops the work, then all the electrons go back to the normal place we call relaxation time. And this time will be shown or detected by the computer. And then it also shows a gray level, and it's different between fat or muscle or bone. And then you can see what's the reason of the change in the signal of a tissue. The tendon is okay, it's black in the T2 or T1 or like this. And if it's inflamed, it will be lighter or more gray or like this. Yeah? To me, you can also see the situation of the tissue, and you can see which kind of tissue it is. I think MRI is the best method to find out the reason of the pain.
Yes, and what is then the CT scan then?
CT depends on X-ray. It's also X-ray, and it's a special construction and special technique to see slices of the body. If you make a normal X-ray, the X-ray comes from the front to the back, and there is a film or a detector, and you have all the slices of the body.
So to summarize it, the ultrasound, it's more live at that spot, and you can see the soft tissue and the real-time image. In the
Yeah,
X-ray, more the bones and
yes,
the lung, perhaps, yes. And MRT, that's the most important for your tendons, for your muscles, etc. You see the most
also,
on that one.
also the bones. If you have an arthrosis and the chondral surface is damaged, you see the reaction of the bone. If there is no surface on it, you see all the tissues. You can see if they are not in the right signal, then you can see if
No.
there's any problem.
So when I take myself as an example, we were together skiing. I fall on my shoulder. You was there at the spot. We go. I had an X-ray at that moment.
Mhm.
The doctor in Austria said you have to do a MRI scan. I come to the Netherlands. It was broken. They could see it by the X-ray, but the doctor there said we don't do a MRI scan. So actually, they don't know what my tendons and my muscles how they are. So he was just guessing, and I said to him, "You have to make an MRI scan." And you said this also to me. You must ask this, Ton, because if you measure, you are knowing. So if you don't measure, you cannot know it. So it could, because the whole body is holistic, you have the tendons, the muscles, and the bones. So it's important to have the right equipment for the right injury.
But there is a
Yes,
cost involved, of course, right, Tom?
And I, after how many months is it now? 7, 8 months ago, and still I have
yes,
issues with it. So it's not an issue of the bone anymore. It's an issue
no.
of the muscles now.
If you have a crack of the tendon, the special muscle you try to train cannot be trained because there's no connection between tendon and muscle and the bone. So if you use the muscle and the muscle is not in connection with the bone over the tendon because the tendon is cracked, then you have no chance to train it. Then the muscle will work, but it will work in the air and not
Yes.
to
And
move
and
the bone.
and then it happened what Sean said. It cost money. So they say we don't do that. And still the dancer continues try to dance, but actually it's not possible because you don't know actually what happened with the injury because you have not enough information.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
How to
I would
handle
say,
such thing then?
Yeah. What can I say? I try to make it possible for every friend of mine, every dancer who asked me to make an MRI. And in Germany, we can find a way. I don't know. In Netherlands, it's not so easy.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
well,
know.
don't know how
yeah.
it is in America, Sean.
Let's talk first in general because we're now going very specific. I think
Ah,
the issue
okay.
is, yeah, so the issue we talk about is if a dancer feels pain and feels there's an injury. I think what you offer, Sylvia, is so special that there is a very accurate way to diagnose, to make a diagnostic. What very often happens, Tom, is that either the dancer themselves or with the trainer are not going to immediately address the issue, which can only cause problems, or they immediately go and with well intention go to a PT, so a physical therapist, and they start to move things and see if basically what they do is see if pain increases or decreases, but we still don't know exactly what's going on. What specifically for dancers, what Sylvia and her center offers, and we cannot have that everywhere, unfortunately, but it's something we need to think about as dancers, make a few good diagnostic first before you start to try all kind of things. Everyone throws in an ID, you need to stretch more, you need to stretch less. And I think what Sylvia and her team does so well is do first a really good diagnosis first, which you can do with CT scan, ultrasound, X-ray, and MRI is the what we discussed today. There's another form too, which is only in hospitals, PET scan for very specific injuries. But an MRI gives you a really good thing. Now, it's not always available, unfortunately, but if you feel that you have something, we have seen that too much in the dance world, Tom, that the problem is actually because the diagnosis was wrong in the beginning and people keep practicing and then
Yes,
they
and
that
yeah,
is
I,
that's
I
the issue
yeah.
we talk about, and then you
Yes,
can give an
correct.
advice what to do. uh,
Yes, but you need the right person on the right place. I take myself again as an example. Not all doctors are have some reflection with dance. They think, oh, it's just a hobby. One time in a week
yeah,
dance. When you do this as a job,
yeah,
then go also to a specialist who has experience with dance. Silvia is one she danced by herself, and she know what she say, and the other one maybe too, but has not so much reflection with dance or other sport.
To be honest, I don't even think that has something to do with dance. I think there's a step missing that Sylvia offers.
No.
You have an injury or pain, make sure that you go to someone who's doing proper diagnosis first before you
Yes,
continue
correct.
or increase or change your movement regime. And that's actually the main message. So that's a responsibility first and foremost for the dancer, and if they're younger, for their coaches and trainers too. But dancers typically are very resilient and hard, so they think about pushing through. Might be a good thing, but you don't know that until you make a diagnosis. That's what Sylvia can offer. Now, we cannot all fly to Berlin. And in some countries like the Netherlands, it could take 3 months before you get an MRI. I know all these things, but I'm just saying in general, there are other ways to do some good diagnosis first. So don't immediately go to your normal physician because, with all respect, they typically don't know anything about these things that we talk about. Or they know about it, but they have not the equipment to do it. Uh,
Mm. Yes, I told my doctor in the hospital in the Netherlands, please, I'm a dancer choreographer. I need my shoulder to show people how it works. But if you not give an MRI scan, yeah, he said, I can see this from the X-ray. That was really surprised. But so I try, Silvia will help me, of course, in Berlin. But yeah, this is what happened. That's a practical way. Sometimes people don't want to help, but still you have a issue with that body and you want to continue, and not me alone.
the diagnosis is really important. And we talked
Yes.
only, and with Sylvia, we talked about other things too, but we typically talk about bone, tendons, or ligaments and muscles. But there is another thing in there as well, and that is a fascia, which you, I think, only
Yes,
can see in MRI, Sylvia, which is
yes. The fascias of the muscles are very thin. Obviously, not see the fascias, but I see the problems or the follows of the shorten of the fascias. And if they have a rupture because of an accident, then I also see the follows and I see that there is a rupture. But the fascia is so thin that I don't see it really, but I see the follows, the
yeah.
results. Yes, the results. Yeah.
So the fascia is basically a thin membrane almost that encapsulates. Is that a way to say
Yes.
it? Or a thin
Yeah.
layer, which, if that's broken, which often comes through overstretching, and that could be an accident. We'll interview her, Tom, as well. She's a specialist in this area. She's a dancer too, so
Um,
we'll speak to her too.
it's very important to stretch or to mobilize the fascias because they are the surface of the muscles,
Yeah.
and they are, but they are not in a whole connection with the muscles. They have the possibility, or they should be able to move. The muscle and the fascia, they have to move against each other. You have to mobilize the fascias. This is very important because the fascias, they go over to the tendons. They will be part of the tendons, and the tissue is the same. The fascia is the same tissue like the tendons. And so the movement between the muscle and the fascia is very important.
So
And
warming up is also important here.
yes,
Yes, that's what I already told. If you management your body before, but not only your body, Sean, also the mind, because it's also a mindset. But because I didn't have the trainer who didn't give me enough context to handle this, and I didn't take this so serious. But it's, of course, you invest in your body. If you already management your body in an earlier age and understand how you warm up your body, it's for each person different, then you can prevent your injuries on a later stage, in a later age, on a short term and long term. But nobody explained it to me. So actually, the trainers, they were busy only with one thing, and it's the technique. I don't know how you have that, but this is how I go through the years through dancing. Now I know, I say to my children, take knee pads. Why? We don't need that. I don't feel anything. I did 10 times. Oh, my knee hurts. But I want to practice again 10 times. It's not possible anymore because the knee hurts already. So then I must say, okay, listen to your body. We will stop now. But if you prevent and take it like that and you practice with it, that's okay. But they don't take it serious. So it depends also on the trainer, I think, how they explain it to the dancer why it's so important and give them context. And then they come to Sylvia because they over done the knee on the floor too many times on the knee, and it's a stress in it in the knee. And then to get the right equipment. But anyway, I had one question in these machines. There are different brands in it and different strengths in this machine. When I heard from an MRI scan that you have one MRI, but different ones in it, different levels in it, different strengths in it. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah. There are different heights of the magnet field. We have a 1.5 Tesla. There's also 3 Tesla or 7 Tesla. I think for the normal
Yes.
diagnostic, it's in 1.5 Tesla is enough. Only if you look to the brain, sometimes 3 Tesla brings some better results or more differentiated results, but the most problems you can show with the 1.5 Tesla. And
Yeah. So,
also
yeah.
you I think 1.5 Tesla, there are some people who are very sensitive. They feel the magnetic field and the power which comes to the body, and the nerves sometimes will make some, we say, fasciculations. You cannot stop. You cannot say, oh no, I will not move, but it comes because the magnetic power will make this. And in 3 Tesla, and obviously in 7 Tesla, you will have this more and more. I don't know. It's more the scientific way to go higher and higher with the magnet field.
The good thing with MRI in general is, yeah, some people are
Yeah.
sensitive to it, but you can use it over and over again. Which with X-ray is first of all you don't see everything, but that's a dangerous route. MRI you can use for continuous checking
Mm.
if you're getting better too, which is something in this discussion. If you have your diagnosis, you can come back, prevent it, say that you have the money and the time
Yes.
for it, right? But you can go back and see if you know how you develop in the injury that you have.
Perhaps one information, the MRI does not make genetic damage. It brings energy to the body, so then that we don't use MRI if there is a pregnant woman under 3 months being pregnant, because the cells of the embryo they are not fixed really. They are working and moving and developing. We don't do it because we don't know whether there's a problem. There will come a problem later, but we know that there is giving a lot of energy to the body, so we don't do it. But in X-ray, normal X-ray and CT, it's also X-ray. It is an ionizing radiation, and it makes genetic damage.
Oh,
And
wow. I didn't know that.
and it's not only in the moment, but it will be a summary over the whole life.
Phew.
It means as often as you are getting X-ray, yeah. So we as
Wow.
radiologists have to uh, ask every time if somebody comes to X-ray if it is really necessary. This first, and if the X-ray will give or can give the answer what is given from the doctor who sent them to me.
Yes. How long will stay this in your body then? Because my teeth, I have very bad teeth, no, but I get an X-ray. How many times you can do that? Actually, so less as possible. Then it makes damage.
If you do an X-ray and you ask a question and would like to have a diagnose, you have to ask you every time what's better, not making the X-ray and don't know what I have or you have, or is it better to know what I have and then I will not have an abscess or pain or like this. You always have to ask, do I have a profit from this method, from the X-ray? So,
I I
but
assume.
we try, or everybody try to say as much as possible, but as low as necessary. As it's
Yes.
not easy. It's a, yeah, a private or personal decision.
Yes. Before I know you, I didn't know these old things what you tell me. So now, while by while, I discover more. But as a patient, like dancers, they go in, they trust the doctor there, but they don't have this information from these machines, and also not the knowledge. And also, you don't know, because maybe you see first time this doctor, what which advice he can give me. So actually, there are a lot of build of trust, and how we say, the injury that you can diagnose the injury proper, because I can imagine that you have different doctors, different thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And how to handle this as a patient or as a dancer when you go to there? What is your responsibility? Just go there and close your mouth and say nothing, or do something on it, or ask questions? I don't know how to ask the question, but actually, would it be better to have active dancers there who ask questions to the doctors, or how to handle this?
That's not an easy question for me. Yes, but I think if you talk to the patient and if you know for what you have to ask, it's better than if you have a doctor who does not know anything about dancing or about the problems or about training. Uh, In my opinion, it would be better if the doctor knows a lot about the sport
Yeah.
or about the dancing, then he can ask the right questions. And then you also give an idea what you can do if you know the diagnosis, if you have the MRI and what happens. You also understand that the dancers who are in training and who looks to a competition what they want, and they are training a lot of months to be fit for the competition, and then you have a diagnosis and they ask me, what do you think? Can I dance again? Can I dance now? Can I make the competition? And then if you are also a dancer and know what they have to do to be successful, then you can say, okay, if I see this picture and I see this diagnose, I can only say this tendon could crack if you do it again, if you continue. And then it's a decision of the dancer and also a little bit of the trainer. Yeah.
If it's an adult dancer, it's always the decision of the dancer. I think
Yeah, yeah.
a podcast like this could help people to inform themselves a little bit better, to know the different
Mhm.
ways of diagnosis. There is when you feel an injury coming up, is when it's a time to have a good diagnosis and then do the proper treatment of it. And sometimes we jump immediately to the treatment, right? And try and error, and try on error with this type of injuries could be very dangerous, right? Because if a tendon comes loose and you try, maybe a little bit more stretching helps. And so that could be very dangerous. That would be my advice. At the same time, with current internet and AI and what have you not, people can inform themselves, but we're still not trained doctors. Sometimes you
No, no,
see,
no.
oh,
But
so. It's good that we
Yes.
can do it, but at the same time, we also need to talk to doctors who are well informed. So, my advice would be is not per se make your own diagnosis, but be very specific in feeling what you feel. What is your level of pain? How can you describe your pain? Be very specific, not saying, yeah, I have pain in my knee. Is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull pain? Be very specific. Also, be very specific in explaining what you do to the doctor, right? To find a doctor that is also known with dancing would be great, but if it's not there, educate the other person. Explain what you do, explain your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
intensity of training. And that's a responsibility of trainer and dancers. And that's where I think they just feel, oh, I have pain, let's go to a doctor. We have half of a conversation, so the other person does not know exactly what questions to ask. And I think, Tom, you and I could almost make some sort of a list to say, hey, if you have pain, together with Silvia, think about these
Yes.
things. Is it a dull pain? Is it a sharp pain? Can you pinpoint a location? Does it only happen when you do a certain exercise? I think we could do that, and that would help already. Any
Yes.
with any professional in the health industry, they only have the intentions to help the other person in general. But we have a big responsibility ourselves. But let's not be the doctor. It's
No,
another
no,
thing.
of course not,
Do
Sean. But what
yeah.
I experience in the practical way, sorry, Sylvia, you want to say something?
Yes, do we have a little time for one point? Because I would like to say something about children and their development. And there, I think that trainers should be trained in knowing about the growth of the children's body, because children's bones are growing and they have a lot of bone cores which are not fully connected with the bone itself, because they have to grow. They have the epiphysis and they have the bones. And the connection there is not bone, it's flexible. And if you train them as much as possible, these bone cores will not connect with the bone. There will be a disconnection. And so they are flexible, yes, and they will be flexible if they grow up, but they will become instable. I don't know, they will keep flexible, but they will have problems if they are older, and a lot
Stability
of
problems.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with a lot of stability
And
problems.
so I think everybody who trains children has to learn the anatomy and the growing of the bone of children. They have to know about it because they have to know what they do if they train
Mm.
them maximum flexible.
Yeah,
It's a
you
big
see,
problem.
yeah, that specifically in some countries if it comes to dancing and also gymnastics, where I don't know about you, Tom, but lately people try to send me videos of young Asian dancers. Say, oh, that reminds me of you and how they practice. And I see what they do with exercises. It's horror. I said, those
Yeah,
kids will be so damaged when they're older. It just pushed them
yeah,
so far over the limit, and they can do it, like you said, Sylvia. It's a really good point. When they're
Yes, but
young.
I have also the other extremes. One of my students go to the doctor, they have a little pain, or I don't know if a little, but they have pain in one finger. And the doctor say, yeah, you can train
You
not for
cannot
one
do
month.
it.
You
Yes.
have to be rest
Yeah.
and do
Well,
nothing.
it's a good
Yeah.
point. We're sitting opposite, but we have to understand the extremes to find good what's the middle ground.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also one super point would be we have a podcast over it, the proprioception. How more you are aware of your body and reflect to your body, and you do this also the most with your brain, but it's communication vice versa. Give attention to it, listen to the body. Try the one what you said, Sean. That was a really nice point. Some dancers care more about their clothes or their car or their bicycle than their own body, because this is what you have every day. You wear it every day, you carry it every day, it is with you every
Love it.
day. Care for it, go for it, take it serious, and find the information on the World Wide Web, like Sean told. Try to find an expert like Sylvia who dances by herself. Maybe you can find a doctor who danced, and you find this on the World Wide Web, and you think, okay, it's just 1 hour drive, but to this man I will go, or this woman. And this is quite important, but we don't take care about that one. We like our hobby or our profession, but I would take it more serious now. But now I'm older and I understand that more. When I was young, I didn't also take this so serious.
Yeah, so then it comes down to the teachers and coaches to educate.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Unfortunately, we way past time. That's okay. Sylvia, was there anything? There was a really good addition, by the way, about the growing bones of young kids, and to know more about it as a trainer and as a coach. Are there any? Is there anything else we should have asked you in this context?
I think we talked about everything we were talking before. So this moment, for me, it's okay.
That's good. Okay, we'll probably ask you back, and on
Please.
that
Absolutely.
would be a great idea. Luckily, we also know each other well, so we soon meet each other all again, and we can talk about all these things. It's a great topic, Ton, to continue in
Yes.
our podcast from several angles.
Sean, we have one subject we must ask Sylvia again back, and this is the spine and the center
Yes,
Mm.
of the body, because this is, and because
yes.
there are so many imaginary stories about that one. Yes, yes,
You have a really
yes.
great
Continue.
lecture about the rotation and the twisting of the spine, which a lot of dance teachers just. Okay, we talk
Doesn't
about it
know that.
then because it's fascinating and it's educating. With that, from my side, I already say, of course, thank you so much, Sylvia. It was a pleasure to have you in the show. It's always a pleasure to see you, by
It
the
was
way.
a pleasure for me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well done. We all spoke a different language, which is also challenging, right? But that's great. This was Dance Gems with another podcast from Ton and I. I say already goodbye to Sylvia. Sylvia, don't go away, but
Bye bye.
we'll put you out of view for a moment. I think that was great, Ton. Sylvia,
Yes,
prevention and diagnosis of injury is such a big topic, right? There's so much to
yes,
say about it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
but I give one more: take care of that body. And if you don't think you don't feel it, think about the long term. You invest in your
yeah.
instrument. That's the biggest part. The brain, it's the smallest one, but it's steering that body also, and vice versa. So listen to it.
Yeah, be sure that you can be a dancer at any age. Ton and I are not the youngest anymore, but we are
Ah,
blessed with still a good body and a good mindset. And we wish that all for all of you, of course, so that you can
yes,
dance your life long, not only when you are really young.
yes,
With that, we say goodbye, Ton, and I'll see you back in the next episode. Let me start the music in the meantime. Right, you can find us. You can find us
no, no,
on
no.
Spotify, Dance Dash Gems, or Apple Dance Gems. We also have our YouTube channel at Ton Greten /podcast. Then we have a website www.gem.dance/podcast. And last but not least, we also have a Facebook .com/groups/the Dance Jams. Find us, just the Dance Jams. Find us there. We give you a lot of information there too. Bye bye.
Goodbye. Till next
Bye.
time.